Red alert, red alert, red alert. Oh my god, I'm going crazy right now. I just watched the VOD of the latest Dungeon Coach live stream, and in that, Dungeon Coach was talking about the new defenses, active defense and passive defense, and how they're gonna have a name change. And those name changes, oh my god, I'm going crazy. These name changes is something this is the first thing that I dislike about DC20. I'm gonna be honest here. And this is kind of a good sign, I guess. The fact that this is a TTRPG with so many mechanics, and the fact that the only thing that I can find to dislike are names of things, which is a good sign. But I'm still gonna throw a tantrum about it because I really, really, really disagree with Dungeon Coach and his whole biases towards mechanically focused defenses. And I'm gonna talk about it. I love him. I love Dungeon Coach. He's making a great game, but I dislike this new defensive names. I dislike them. All right. So the new names for the active defense and passive defense, the mechanical ones are point defense and area defense, which by the way, he did say that he might change the names. He was just focusing on the mechanical aspect that, okay, in place of point, it could be personal or something like that. Right. So the idea is that it's point and area, which is mechanically focused, and the other was narratively focused, which was fortitude and reflex. Reflex being in place of active defense, and fortitude being in place of passive defense. And I'm going to be honest, Dungeon Coach, in the start of the stream, he said that he's not going to share his opinion and he's not going to tell us where he's swaying and what he believes is the correct way to go. But before the poll started, he gave his opinion. I'm going to be honest. Coach, why are you being so unbiased against my baby of these beautiful, beautiful names of reflex and fortitude? These are the most perfect names for these defensive types, and something that Dungeon Coach has always been about intuitiveness. The defensive types at the start, when active defense and passive defense were introduced to us, the idea was that the active defense is something that you dodge using your agility and using your intelligence, and passive defense was something that you just tank. How hard can you take the hit, which is might and charisma. And let me ask you this, Dungeon Coach, if you're watching this, I love you by the way, but still, I need to ask you this. How does point and area has anything to do with agility, intelligence, might, and prime? Charisma. They have nothing to do with them. Reflex and fortitude explain the defensive types far more simpler and far more true to the original concept than area and point. The word point, I'm sorry, I'm going to be honest here. The word point has nothing to do with agility and dodging an attack. It has nothing to do with that. It's not attacking a defense. It's talking about the attack of being like 1 point. And sure, if that's where you want to lean on, that's fine. But the fact that the whole idea of active defense and passive defense originally was that, oh, you're dodging one attack and you're tanking the other. Whereas now it's focused more on the more mechanical aspect, as you talked about, which is point and area of effect, which I'm gonna be honest, I'm not okay with this. I'm not okay with this. I feel like these names are bad. Even in the live stream, right? Someone super chatted that, oh, Dungeon Coach, a point is something you need to explain far more, whereas reflex and fortitude is much more easier to understand, basically, right? Which is a fair point.
Rex Room, point and area, describe it well, but don't feel practical. With my ADHD, naming it after mechanics confuses me. The latter feels more explanatory and ironically provides more clarity. That is some great feedback. That is some great feedback for the narrativeness of that, of it making more sense. Because yeah, I see that. How it could, because of where it takes your brain, it makes more sense because it's less of a thinking about a rule and it's thinking about what's happening.
Which is a far more realistic point, which, by the way, kind of beats the point of efficiency, mechanical efficiency of area and point. The whole point of area and point is that they're mechanically efficient. But if reflex and fortitude are much more simpler to understand, what is even the point of point and area, or the mechanically focused one? The fact that the narrative ones are much more easier to understand, and at the same time, they're much more true to the original concept of dodging and tanking, which, by the way, point and area have nothing to do with dodging and tanking. They never explain it. The word doesn't have any meaning of dodging and tanking. It doesn't have any meaning into that. Whereas reflex and fortitude is perfect for the whole point of the attack. That, oh, I'm getting shot by an arrow, I'm gonna dodge. That's a reflex. I'm getting hit by a fireball. I have to tank it. That's fortitude. I feel like it's far more true to the original concept of dodging and attacking, sorry, dodging and tanking than area and point is, or whatever the more mechanically efficient name that you can come up with. I'm sorry, like these names are just not that good. And I feel like the narrative, like, I do not know why Dungeon Coach is not leaning on the narrative ones, because from the start of the creation of DC20, one thing that Dungeon Coach has always been like hard on about was intuitiveness. Intuitive word was something that Dungeon Coach always used to say, and he still would say, right? He would still talk about the DC20 is much more intuitive. And let me ask you this: what is more intuitive? Is point and area much more intuitive? Intuitive is there's no way point is intuitive. I'm gonna be honest. Or is reflex and fortitude much more intuitive? These mechanically focused ones are aiming at efficiency, and they're sacrificing intuitiveness. They're sacrificing the narrative aspect, and at the same time they're sacrificing the simplicity. Point is something that you would have to explain to people far more. Even if you decide to name it personal or anything like that, you will have to explain it much more. Whereas reflex is self-explanatory. You can just say that, okay, if one person gets targeted, you use your reflexes to dodge the attack. I feel like the word reflex is much more simpler and easier to understand, and dare I say intuitive, than point is or personal is or whatever the hell the other names can be. And fortitude is far more intuitive of you tanking a damage than area is. Area, the word, has nothing to do with you tanking attacks. The word area is not true to the passive defense concept. The concept of passive defense was that you just take a large hit and you just tank it. That was the whole concept of passive defense. But now it's being shifted to area. It's making it much more mechanicalized. It's in my opinion, this is not a good change. If Dungeon Coach goes with it, I will not like it. I will accept it because like I will have no other option, right? But like I do not like this. I do not like this. Dungeon Coach was, and I'm gonna be honest. I genuinely feel even the community somewhat believes that the narrative ones were good. Because like if you look at the ward, Dungeon Coach gave us the explanations of narrative ones and mechanical ones, and right before the poll started, Dungeon Coach gave his opinion. Even though, and I love him, I love Dungeon Coach, but he swayed the votes. You, Dungeon Coach, you swayed my baby's votes. You were biased against them. The fortitude and reflexes, I am assured that they would have won the vote if Dungeon Coach wouldn't have said anything. If Dungeon Coach wouldn't have said that he just doesn't like fortitude and reflexes, or he believes that they're not the right fit, if he wouldn't have said that, which by the way he did, I'll show a clip right now if I can find it. I mean, I'm sure I can find it, right?
When you cast your vote, think about the mechanics or the narrative. And then the other thing I saw another comment on, someone said like, oh, I would rather paint the picture and the narrativeness, and we're playing a tabletop role play game, and like it's we're painting pictures and stuff. I absolutely believe in flavor. As you can see with my own design principles for classes have flavor features, subclasses have flavor features, like all the pillars of the game that we're doing stuff. So flavor and narration is huge. I don't know if it needs to be huge when we're talking about defenses, right? There's no in Dungeons and Dragons, your AC, there's no narrativeness there. It's very clean. It's just there's only one defense type, so that's why it's so obvious there. But I almost feel like it is better to have a clean and clear cut description of the attack, and there it is. And if you're making a monster and it targets a single target, it is point defense. If you're making an attack and an ability or a whirlwind or a fog cloud or some sort of area of effect, it's area defense. I think that's very clear and clean. So I don't want to say anything else, but I want to make sure I talk about all the different things I'm seeing here. So here we go. Let's start the poll. What do y'all think?
I feel like recency bias played a big role here, because Dungeon Coach gave his opinion and instantly the poll started, which swayed the votes. This is like the presidential elections, and it's being unfair votes. My babies are being taken away. Fortitude and fucking reflex are such good names, and I hate that they're leaving. I mean, they're not leaving 100%, but Dungeon Coach said that he was heavily favoring the mechanically focused ones. And I'm gonna be honest, the mechanically focused ones feels like these modern buildings, which are like these bland gray ones, whereas the narrative ones feel much more like it feels there's much more soul in it. Like it feels beautiful to say those words rather than point and area or personal and area. Like it mechanizing the game too much. I don't know why he's leaning so hard on mechanical stuff right now. Like I feel like fortitude and reflex are much more intuitive. I'm stumbling over my words because I'm throwing a tantrum because I'm going crazy.
Are you kidding? That's unfair. She made those. I need to calm down. Everything's fine.
Amanda.
I'm an adult.
I'm gonna calm down right now. I'm gonna calm down. The point I was making is that reflex and fortitude are much more intuitive, much more simpler to understand for new people. The names reflex and fortitude are true to the original concept of dodging and tanking, whereas the area and point are not true to the original concept of dodging and tanking. And there are far more pros for the narrative ones than there are cons of them, and there are far less pros of the mechanical one. The only pro of like the mechanical focused one is that they're somehow efficient, and I arguably I could disagree with that. I believe mechanically it's far, I mean maybe not mechanically, but for the people it's much more easier to understand reflex and fortitude than it is to understand point or personal. Like I'm like I had to throw a tantrum because I disagree with this. I do not want this change. I want it to be narratively focused, and I really dislike that it's even called narratively focused, as if it doesn't have mechanical advantages. The word reflex and fortitude have far more advantages than just being narratively good. For armor system, it's going to be much more easier for people to talk about reflexes by saying that, oh, it's going to make you mobile and fortified, where it's going to make you more fortified and much more durable. Like it's far more easier to fit reflex and fortitude into the armor system than area and point is. I feel like these names are just much better than active and point. I just had to give my opinion. You guys in the comments, let me know if you disagree. I'm obviously open to change because I love this game, right? So if in the end active and point do get into the game, I'm gonna cope a bit, but like I will need something to cope on. So I will have to lie to myself of how active and not active, like the point and area is better than reflex and fortitude. I have to lie to myself that they're better if I want to like kind of get over it. Right. If they do end up choosing fucking area and point, which I dislike. So in the comments, let me know if I'm wrong. I'm open to being wrong. I'm gonna be honest. I'm open to being wrong. If you can just tell me why I'm wrong and what other pros and cons there are, I'm open to hear it out. I'm open to hear it out. My mind is open to be changed. But I truly believe that the narrative ones, which I do not even want to call narrative ones because they have mechanical advantages of being much more intuitive, which was a focus of DC20 from the start. I don't know why we are abandoning it. Like in reflex and fortitude are far more intuitive than point and area. Okay, so I don't know why we are going away from it. But if you guys have some great explanations, comments are open. Let me know. I will read it 100%. Right, so just let me know in the comments if you disagree. I would love for my mind to be changed, but I just feel reflex and fortitude are far better than point, area, or personal, or whatever the mechanically focused ones can name. Right, I'm sorry. Anyway, I need to just end this video. Sorry. Let me know in the comments of what you think, and I'll see you guys in the next video where I'll talk about something else. Goodbye.